And here I thought the Scorpion King was the thing that was going to sting the most. But really, it was losing an entire hour of footage.
Welcome back to But Is It a Good Movie? Where we go through my movie collection one by one every week to find out if that week's choice is a good movie and should be kept in the collection, or if it's a bad one and we should throw that bad boy out. I'm your host, Ish, and with me is your co-host, Nick.
And that's me.
Alright, so we're talking about The Scorpion King again. The first time we tried recording this episode, something happened with our recording equipment and we lost like half the episode. So we're like, fuck it, let's just start over.
Yeah, we made it like 50 some odd minutes in.
Yeah.
And then it like, we just saw it wasn't going to work. And then when we saved it and reopened it, we only had like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, awesome.
Yep. But you know what? I feel it. I feel like this episode's definitely gonna... we'll do better this time around. It's going to be just as good. You know what? This episode is going to have such a sting to it. So we watched the 2002, I don't know if it's so beloved anymore, Scorpion King, which is a spinoff / prequel of The Mummy Returns.
With our boy, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yes. In his first ever leading role movie. So I would say this is his first movie. Because he's been in other movies before, but as far as like what we know of him now, like this is his like first go at it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
In case you haven't seen The Scorpion King before, it's based off a character from The Mummy Returns. And in The Mummy Returns, we see this character as a defeated king going through the desert with his men, and one by one slowly they all die until Anubis makes a deal with the Scorpion King, and in turn he gets Anubis's army to gain power and take control of Egypt, but Anubis gets his soul. And from what that knowledge of The Mummy Returns, you would think that this movie would kind of lead up to that character, but unfortunately it doesn't.
No, it is very disappointing because I have not seen The Mummy Returns, and I've only seen the scene where you get to see the Scorpion King.
Oh yeah, the CGI monster.
Where he is half human, half scorpion, half king.
You want to know something kind of interesting about that particular scene? So the reason it looks so bad, right? Because this is 2002. CGI wasn't that terrible at the time, but the reason it was so bad is, if I remember correctly, it's because they only had 8 days before the movie came out to make that.
Oh my god, that's serious crunch.
Yeah. So it was like they didn't have enough time, didn't have enough money, and probably were burnt out by that point. So that's why he looks like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he looks like like an action figure.
Yeah.
He's like, clawing at people, like snipping at them.
He's like a big lobster almost.
Yeah.
Very.
Which is one of the reasons why I was kind of excited to see this movie, was I wanted to see the transformation.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Knowing the Scorpion King as that character in that movie, this movie did not have that much CGI in it. I don't know if you've noticed that. It was like a lot of practical effects.
Yeah. And like, it was just a lot of like, since like the movie is just like, not like a typical action movie, but like, yeah, I did notice it looked like, just a pretty standard action movie. Yeah. There was no like random things thrown in to make it look cool.
Yeah, I think like whatever CGI they did add was only to enhance whatever practical effects were happening at that moment. And like the animals, I think, other like the snakes and the ants were like the biggest like CGI things that I saw.
I think the storm blowing in over the hill looked a little rough.
Yeah.
But
I didn't check if that was practical or not.
I think that was it though. Like the ants, the snakes and stuff.
Yeah, so this movie it's about this character who is the last Akkadian, which is a tribe of, I would say, like mercenaries, and they're hired to take down a sorcerer who is part of like this king's like group of people. The king's name is Memnon, and he is trying to conquer, I guess Egypt, right? Like they didn't really specify exactly where this is, but I'm gonna say Egypt.
Yeah, I think it's Egypt, somewhere in the desert.
Yeah, because they do like it has like a little voiceover in the beginning saying like before the pyramids there was like this.
Yeah. And so we got Memnon, the evil doer, the king. He's a badass swordsman, and he has a sorcerer who could see into the future. And that's how he's able to win and conquer all these battles.
Yes.
And there's only like a couple tribes in the desert left that are like considered quote unquote free.
Yeah, they're like the rebel alliance to this empire, and they decide to hire these 3 Akkadians to take out the emperor. But I don't think they hired them to take out the emperor necessarily, but to take out the sorcerer. So like the emperor is weakened.
Yeah,
or the king, I would say.
Yeah, because in the beginning we see all the free tribes are like, we can't win, we can't do it. But then they're like, what if we took out the sorcerer? Everyone's like, yo, I'm in.
Yeah. So they go in. Shit goes off. Shit hits the fan, and our main hero Matthias is taken into custody, put in a death trap, and left to die. But he gets rescued by a horse thief, so they head to the main city to try to take down the sorcerer again. Matthias runs into the sorcerer, finds out it's a sorceress, and I don't know if he takes pity on her or something, but they escape. They meet up with the tribesmen, go back to the main city, and eventually take down this kingdom. And he becomes the new king.
Yeah.
So that is the premise of the Scorpion King.
Yes. And so, so we have Matthias, which the movie turns into less of about like just taking down like the sorcerer, because part of the Akkadian group is Matthias's brother.
Yeah.
Which gets killed right in front of him. So it turns into kind of like a revenge story because Memnon kills his brother. So he's like, how can I use my already established mission to accomplish my new mission?
Yeah.
So it's a little fun. It's a little interesting.
Yeah, this is the second revenge story that we've covered so far.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Upgrade was a revenge movie.
Yes.
And this is what you expect of an early 2000s action movie. All like the fun, like I would say charming. I don't know if you would agree with me, but I saw it as a little bit charming of its time.
Yeah, it's not like necessarily like the worst thing I've ever seen, but the whole movie feels like a fight scene from front to back.
It is.
And when they stop fighting, I'm like very not interested because there was no time to like establish the characters for me to be like, I care about Matthias. I care about, there's some characters that get like a little bit of screen time, but this is just Matthias's story.
Yeah, because this movie, what it does a lot of is it like whenever it has some kind of downtime, instead of going into it a little bit more, they like yada yada the story to get to the next fight scene. So I guess for us as the audience, not to lose too much interest, but on this rewatch, it was a little hard for me to be invested whenever there wasn't something flashy going on in the screen.
Yeah. And this movie is like a dad movie.
It's a total dad movie.
Because like when people are fighting, like Matthias and like we'll talk about another character, they're just like when they're fighting, they're just like slaughtering hundreds of dudes.
Oh yeah.
And it's like awesome. This is all the PG-13 combat that like I came here to see.
Oh yeah, man. First time I saw this movie, speaking of a dad movie, my dad took me to the movie theaters to see this movie. So as a young, I would say like first or second grader, oh my god, my mind was fucking blown. I practically jizzed my pants right there in the seat as I'm watching this movie. Because it had everything I wanted, and my little kid imagination just filled in all the gaps.
Oh my god, yeah. Because there is women not wearing a ton of clothes in this movie. We also have like female warrior fighters, a ton of action.
Oh yeah.
And when there is downtime, I did notice there's a lot of like goofs and gaffs where it's like, oh, let's not talk about exposition. Let's just make funny jokes.
Yeah, if this movie had like some fart joke in it, I would have lost it as a kid. But I don't think it has any.
Oh man.
And you could have shoved that in right in there with a camel. But yeah, as a kid, I really dug this movie. My dad dug it so much, so he bought me the Scorpion King GameCube game, and I played the shit out of that. Never finished it because it's very janky.
I can only imagine. Those movie tie-in games are like so funny though.
Yeah, and I don't even know when it takes place. Thinking back on it, I think it's kind of like the rise of the Akkadians. So
it's like the prequel to the prequel.
It's a prequel to the prequel. And you collect so much blood rubies in that game. That's like the currency, but they're very transparent and hard to see. And it's such a weird time. I want to revisit that game, but at the same time, I am scared after revisiting this movie that I'm going to tarnish another childhood memory of mine.
Yeah, that is definitely like one of the hardest things to do is like something that's so beloved as like a kid and you go back and watch it as an adult and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's not made for adult me.
So, I guess since we're talking about our experiences with this movie, right? When this movie came out, I loved The Rock. I loved wrestling so much as a kid. So, he was definitely in my radar. And I love I love The Mummy. And I've seen The Mummy Returns. And I did not know that this was a prequel to that movie. Because, kids aren't very aware of, like, movie universes.
Yeah.
But I recognize The Rock. And then when my dad told me that this is related to The Mummy Returns, I was like on board like day one.
You're like stamp sealed, let's go.
Yeah. So I came into this already with kind of like a heightened sense of I'm gonna enjoy this movie because I'm remembering it with like glossy memories. But yeah. I'm very curious as to your initial reaction right off the bat when the movie starts, like, and watching the movie throughout. Like, what were you thinking?
Like the moment the movie opens, it's like a fight scene. It feels like a bar fight. Matthias's brother is like kidnapped, and he just like, and we get to see the like just how strong and how like good of a fighter Matthias is. Where like, and also his strength. He like carries a boulder up this like fucking cliff to like
he's
launch
just scaling
down
the mountain with it.
Yeah. So like at this point, I was like, all right, so this guy is like a badass, but it's Dwayne Johnson. Of course, he's playing a badass that's super strong. Going to build like a tank. No director or writer would ever cast you as like the wimpy guy.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have at least one good fight scene. And so like the whole time I was watching it, I was getting into it a little bit. I was like, all right. But I was ultimately just waiting for when he was going to start to turn into the half scorpion hybrid thing. And when that is already shown that's not going to happen, like halfway through the movie, there's like no transformation or there's no hint at it. I was like very taken out of it.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know. I guess like not looking into the movie too much, I like hyped myself up. I'm like, I can't wait to see what they're going to do. I want to see him get like a scorpion tail or like some like venom power or something. And then when he doesn't, I was like, oh, it's just an action movie with the Scorpion King attached to it,
Yeah, so this movie, right, it's made by a director, Chuck Russell. He's known for movies such as Eraser, The Mask, and a few other movies, like A Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Which is so funny because, like, when you start to name all those, you're like, oh, yeah.
I know this guy.
And then you watch this movie and you're like, yeah, this fits his portfolio pretty well.
Yeah. And it's written by this guy named Steven Sommers. So he made a story for, like, the G.I. Joe movie and the Scorpion King 2. I think he, like, had a hand in that. He wrote Van Helsing.
Oh my God.
So, like, just by, like, those two dudes, right? Like, this is, like, something special. Because Van Helsing is also one of those movies that, as a kid, very beloved.
Yeah, that is one that I did watch growing up, and I thought that was like badass.
Oh yeah, and it's also like the person who was like the cinematographer to this movie was the person who did Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So like,
oh shit,
this just has like
it's all these like action movie like people
Yeah.
coming together. We're gonna make a movie.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So a little story behind the making of this movie. We've discussed how it's based off a character from The Mummy Returns, right? So when they were filming The Mummy Returns, they were sending dailies back to the studio, and the people in the studio were like, "Oh, fuck, this character right here. I want to make a franchise about this character." So they contact the Rock's manager at the time, and they're like, "Hey, they're watching the dailies, and they want to make a movie about your character." And the Rock's like, "Oh, dope. What the fuck are dailies?" 'Cause this is like his first movie, so it's like, that's adorable. He didn't know what dailies were at the time, but he gets hyped because when they were doing that scenes for The Mummy Returns, he was so sick. He was like, I think he had like a fever of like super crazy. It was like filming in the desert, but he was like freezing, so like, he had like blankets on him.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and he was just like not doing the best the whole time, but he pulled through and he got a shot. And I think if it wasn't for those dailies, and if it wasn't for like him not like being like, I don't want to do this anymore, because he did give him like the option of like, hey, do you want to continue? And he's like, yeah, you know what, this is like my first like big thing. I'm not gonna like back out of it. So he's gonna continue in this role. And if it wasn't for like the dedication of like how we know of The Rock as of today, we probably would have not seen any of like these movies that's come from the Scorpion King.
Damn, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I always hear about like actors or actresses like shit happens and like they fight through it. Like totally not like a weird note. I watched Grease live when that came out years ago, and one of the leads, her like father passed away like 12 minutes before it started, and she went on, and and they had an understudy ready for all these people. It's like when you hear stories like that, you're like, they're badass, you know. The fact that like they love their craft and they put all this time and effort in, and they're just gonna do as well as they can under any condition.
Oh yeah.
But also like being sick, like having a fever and you're doing this movie, like that's nuts.
Yeah, and you know you're sick when it's like you're in the desert filming and you still have blankets on you because you're freezing.
Yeah.
But he pulled through, and it just shows like how dedicated The Rock is and how much he totally wanted to, I don't know if escape is the right word, but he wanted to like get past his persona in the WWF and WWE and do something better.
Yeah, I think a lot of like the goal for these like wrestlers, because like it is like you're playing a character.
Yeah.
So it's like you're already in the world of acting, you know. Because we see it with like John Cena and stuff like that. But I feel like he's the one that launched into like the forefront of America's eyes the fastest. Not sure if you agree with that.
I would agree. Yeah, because he's not the first wrestler to go out and do movies, but I will say he's the one that did it the most successfully.
Yeah, and I think it's because he is a good-looking guy.
Oh yeah.
Not saying any of the ones that came before him didn't, but I feel like he's a good-looking guy. He's not white, so it's immediately like a, you know, oh shit, who's that? You know, he looks very charismatic, and like I always said, a lot of his movies always felt like he's just Dwayne Johnson putting on a costume and he's like cosplaying. That's just how I felt every time, and he's really good at that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like at any moment he could break character and it would just be like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just chilling.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And I like how you pointed out like he's like not this like white character, right? And this movie is kind of cool because it has like the main cast of this movie is like they're all non-white, right? So we have The Rock, who is Samoan, and then we have Kelly who plays Sorcerer, and then Michael Clark Duncan is a character. So out of like all the actors in this movie, I think like the only villain is like the only white guy who's like playing Egyptian king.
Yeah, and I also like that there's not like a ton of like white dudes running around because like it is the middle of the desert, Egypt. There was not a large percentage of white people there.
Which is really cool. It just shows how much of like a leading like role leading actor the Rock was, that they had so much trust in this movie, and they were like, are you sure you don't want to throw a white guy in the lead?
Yeah, I know. I think it would have been a very different thing if they tried to like cast him as like just some typical white guy.
Yeah, but speaking of like characters, did you have a favorite character or a character that stood out the most to you in this movie?
Oh man, like the comic relief character of the horse thief.
Yes,
is one that kind of like offsets all the action, which is nice. But probably the best character in the whole movie is this camel.
The camel. Yeah, I agree. I really love the camel. I just love how the camel is I think you said this last time. He's like the breath of the wild horse, where like you whistle and he's just there.
Yeah. Yeah, he shows up out of nowhere and he's just like the trusty steed. Matthias is like, his brothers have like horses and they're like, why do you have a camel? He goes, because they're smarter than horses.
Yeah.
And it's just really funny because like Matthias will like bird whistle. There's no birds in the desert. No. And all of a sudden this camel comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh, sick.
Oh yeah. I love how there's a couple of scenes in the movie where the camel is able to show so much expression just by like, he's able to like look at the camera and be like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Bruh.
Because there's that scene where Matthias is like trying to break into the camp of the king, Memnon. So he shoots an arrow and he's going to zip line from wherever he shot the arrow from the post. So he ties the other rope to the camel. And the camel's just like, I don't know if I can do this. And he's like, oh, come on, I'm not that heavy. And you see how the camel is like struggling as Matthias is ziplining. He takes a knee and he's like, oh, fuck, I don't know, man.
Yeah, and then like just how like the camel just kind of like looks at characters and is like very subtly like reacts like a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Like the sorceress wants a ride. And it just kind of looks at her for a second and then just slowly gets down. It's like, milady.
Yeah, he like bows.
Yeah, bows.
That was really fun. I like the camel a lot.
It was a nice addition. It wasn't just like a horse. Horses are cool, but like, I'm glad he had like a unique mount.
Oh yeah. Another thing that's like unique about this movie and Matthias is, for some reason, they really try to push the fact that Matthias's weapon of choice is the bow and arrow.
Yeah, but when you see this dude, you're like, oh yeah, he's probably a swordsman. He fucking tank. But no, instead he's an archer at heart.
He's an archer at heart. First time we see him use a bow and arrow is he shoots an arrow, impales this guy, and the guy just like somersaults in the air backwards.
Yeah, this movie makes you think that like bow and arrows are like loaded shotguns, like launching dudes, like they're going through the air, like flipping and flying.
Yeah, I think another character, when he gets shot by an arrow, he crashes through the wall and then goes flying out of the building. Yeah,
it is. It's insane. Like and that's the like first like opening of Matthias fighting anyone is with the bow and arrow. And like I was sitting there going like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on?
I think he's so overpowered with that bow and arrow that the movie intentionally writes into it that he loses the bow at some point because he doesn't have it for half the movie.
Yeah, and we see like another character that's like kind of like the right hand man of Memnon with the bow, but he can't pull it back all the way.
Yeah, he's not strong enough.
So it's like I don't know if that's them hinting that like this bow is like really powerful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension behind it, so it's gonna send arrows like really fast.
Yeah, so in this movie, we have Memnon, which is the main bad guy. He's like the big baddie, but kind of cowardly at the same time because he doesn't leave his palace.
And he hides behind the fact that he has a sorcerer that could see into the future.
And then we have, I think Takmet is the other character, which is the son of one of the tribes leaders from the beginning of the movie that hire Matthias to take down the sorcerer and Memnon, but ultimately ends up betraying Matthias, which in turn gets Matthias's brother killed. And the Takmet ends up killing his own dad. Because he comes when Matthias is like tied up. He shows up and he's just like, "Oh, you betrayed me. How could you betray your father?" And he's like, "Oh, you mean this guy?" And like pulls out his dad's head.
yeah. I think he was like, "Oh yeah, you should have seen the look on his face." He's like, "Oh, right here." He has his head. So like, and he throws it to Memnon, which like it's like a showing of like my loyalty kind of thing. And so this is kind of like where it's like, all right, Matthias's whole mission has now changed.
Yeah. So it went from just a contract kill to now he wants to get revenge, which it's one of the parts of the movie that I think I wish would have gone a little bit differently, because Matthias doesn't really get revenge on Takmet, because he ends up dying by Michael Clark Duncan's character Balthazar.
Yeah.
Which is like a little disappointing, but in the end, I guess Matthias had his own character to fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if like Balthazar was like supposed to be like the right hand man of Takmet's like dad's like little tribes group, because it don't seem like he was opposed to the idea of hiring anyone in the first place. He just kind of wants to hide out.
Yeah.
But
I feel like maybe his character was gonna betray them anyway, and it was more or less like, how much money can he take when he does it? Because when they pay the Akkadians, they like, that's the last of their money, I guess.
Yeah, which is like what, 20 blood rupees.
Yeah, whatever that currency's like. We went from first cow where they're talking about shells, ingots, and coins to blood rubles.
Yeah, which. Yeah, I guess we don't even know how currency works in this world, because there's not a point where he has to buy anything. He kind of already has everything he needs, so...
Yeah, he's, like, fully equipped.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's, like, worth that much, because he ends up giving, like, one of the rubies to, like, a street urchin. He's just, like... Because when Matthias enters the city after he gets kidnapped and laid out to die, essentially, he... gets robbed by a bunch of like kids.
Yeah, and they're playing like keep away in the middle of the street.
And he has to he ends up like finding one of the kids, and instead of just like beating the shit out of the kid, he's like, "You know what? I'll give you one of these if you help me break into the palace." So I don't know if they're like worth that much, or Matthias is just like such a kind person to give this kid whatever this amount of money is worth.
Yeah, I think in a couple of these scenes is where it shows like Matthias isn't just this like deadly assassin. He also is like, he has a kind part to him. Because when he's breaking into the kingdom the first time with the kid gets caught. And when Matthias gives him the blood ruble, and then after he gets caught, they think that this kid stole the ruble from the kingdom. So he's going to get his hand cut off.
Yeah.
And even though Matthias can kill Memnon right now, he's like in hiding, he saves the kid, shows he has a kind heart.
Yeah. He like shoots the axe out of Takmet's hand.
Yeah. I thought he was just going to kill him.
Which he should have.
Yeah.
It would have done the same result. But I don't know. I don't know if Matthias is just like, nah, it's dishonorable to just kill someone, but he's about to, I don't know what his thought process was. Maybe it just worked.
The plot needed that character for another scene, so they're like, we'll save him.
Yeah, so that was like another part where I guess we do see like how Matthias is not just like an assassin; he actually cares.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene from this movie? Because like this movie does like, I don't know if it's like a good thing about a movie, but I think this movie is one of those movies where if you walk in and someone's watching this on TV, you're like, I know this scene. I'll watch this until like the scene's over and I'll walk away.
and the scene never ends.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it is just one big action set piece. I have like two favorite scenes.
Okay.
Mainly because like one is just really funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's when Matthias's group is being chased by Memnon's goons in the desert, and he leads them into that cave where two of them get killed by the fastest quicksand you've ever seen in your entire life.
God.
Like, I'm talking not like quick. I'm talking like Usain Bolt quick. The guy steps on the sand and immediately gets sunken in. He has like no time to scream.
Oh yeah.
And then they like looking around, and then another guy goes on and he falls right through again. And they're like, "Let's not go this way."
Oh, yeah. It's like, what is this? Right? Is it just a hole in the ground?
I don't know. I think it is just quicksand.
It's insane how fast they get sucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that seems pretty cool. It's like the Batman scene of this movie, right?
Yeah, because he's like in the shadows taking dudes out.
Yeah, because he lures them in during the sandstorm, and it's just like very spooky. Not that dark to us because it's very like lit up and we can see everything that's happening. But I don't know if it's like for Memnon's like goons, if it's supposed to be like very dark and they can't see what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because there's even a part of that scene where he like is able to string somebody up
through the ceiling.
Yeah, where I'm just like, all right, this scene is fucking all over the place. Yeah. It's insane, but
it's so wild.
That was the scene that made me laugh the most. I do like the scene at the end where they break into the kingdom for the final time.
Okay,
I do like that beginning segment of like how they get in. I thought that was like pretty charming for 2000 standards. The guys pretend to be girls, and Dwayne Johnson is like scaling like a fucking like castle to go kill some guards and stuff. So I definitely like that. That was cool. But ultimately, you could just point at any moment of this movie that like where there's action going on, and I couldn't tell you if that was the first couple minutes or the last couple minutes, unless there was a certain character on screen.
Yeah.
Because like Matthias's group, they just kind of gain side characters, and then when they get ditched, and then they bring them back for the important part of the plot, it's like at any moment you could have like the horse thief on screen. I'd be like, is this the end of the movie or the beginning?
Yeah, this movie has a lot of characters, but they utilize the characters when they have to. And when they don't need the characters, you forget they even exist.
Yeah.
Because Matthias is a one-man show.
Oh, God, he could do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Matthias when he's escaping when he's breaking into the kingdom the first time and leaving, he meets this like alchemist science dude, and he's creating like black powder. He calls it magic powder.
Yeah.
So it's like hinting at what they're gonna use this character for, but when he escapes the kingdom, he uses like this dude's like science catapult. You don't even remember this character until he comes back. And actually thinking about it, I cannot remember how this character meets up with them again.
Okay, so this character, which his name is like Philos, I think, they meet up with him again in the desert. Because while they're trekking through the dunes, he's just there. And like there's charred sand on the ground. And he's just like, I found it. The secret ingredient to my magic powder. It was like the salt that all the sands have around them. So he's just in the desert, like doing experiments, and that's in.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it's very brief.
Oh my god! I feel like I blacked out at that part.
Yeah, it's like if you blink, you'll miss it. Like, and they don't really acknowledge it until like the end where he's back with them. And they're like, oh, fuck, he's here? Because when Matthias is escaping, Philos is, like, looking out the window, and one of Memnon's men is like, oh, there he is, kill him. And they're pointing at Philos, not Matthias. So he's just like, fuck. Because it's established that Memnon's men don't care too much for this character. So I guess they think he's a traitor or something. And
science is stupid.
Yeah. So maybe that's why he's out in the desert, because he escaped because they thought he was gonna die.
I guess.
Yeah, not a lot of backstory there or any like explanation of why he's there and joins them for some reason. Because like when you first meet this character, they barge into his lab.
Oh yeah, and he's like super chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's making his black powder and he's surrounded by all his gadgets. And like Matthias is like, how do I get out of here? And he goes, through that door you just came through.
Yeah. But even though he's just like this minor character that not very like substantial to like story, ends up being the character that basically saves all their asses at the end. Because if it wasn't for him and his magic powder, everyone would have died, I believe.
Yeah, because they take all of his like black powder and they're gonna destroy the supporting beam
to the palace.
And so it's him and the horse thief. Does a horse thief have a name?
Yeah, it's Arped.
Arped.
Yeah, Arped or Arped.
Okay. Well, the horse thief, horse thief and the alchemist are like the little comedy hour we get in between the big action scene at the end. And if they did not get that explosion off, they would not have saved Balthazar and all of like the like women tribe.
Oh yeah.
Because they get surrounded by dudes and basically like it's like part of like it's like the front of like the kingdom or at the castle that like this part explodes, killing like a ton of people.
Yeah. Like, I don't want you to think that I've memorized all of these names. I just have IMDb up.
Okay.
So I'm like reading up all the the characters' names and trying to base them off of like these pictures of the actors. So I'm like, I think that's that character, because they all like, some of them look very different.
Oh my god.
In their headshots.
Okay, well RP definitely looks the same.
Yeah. It's funny because the sorceress doesn't have a name. It's just the sorceress.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was like, we call her just the sorceress.
Yep, that's her name in the movie. I don't think she actually has a name.
That's funny.
And the brother's name, Matthias's brother, who dies, is called Jessup. So
Jessup?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's. So they had time to give the character that Lily exits the movie 5 minutes in a name, but one of the main characters doesn't get a name.
Nah, you don't need it.
Yeah, that's like being surrounded by like, I don't know, like a bank robbery movie, and the main character is a bank teller, and they just keep calling them the bank teller.
So with all the characters, I do enjoy how we get introduced to all of them, right? Because with Arped, the horse thief, we first see him at the camp where Matthias is trying to break into, and he's like pleading Matthias to like let him go.
Yeah.
And he won't shut up, so Matthias ends up knocking him out. And later on, Arped is the one that frees Matthias.
Yeah,
because they're both in like the pit, right?
Yeah, they get buried from the neck down, and they're gonna release all these fire ants.
Yeah.
Onto just their heads, which is like such a scary thing to think about.
Oh my god, that was terrifying.
Yeah, I'd like Googled a little bit about that, and it's like a real torture.
I can't imagine like just getting eaten alive by fire ants.
Yeah, I think they're like one of the few insects that are like completely carnivores. Like, I was watching YouTube videos of people dropping like meat in there, and they just strip the bone completely.
Geez. Man, do you remember in The Mummy, the first one, I believe, there's like a similar scene where
with the scarabs.
The scarabs, and they like
that is so scary.
Yeah,
that is the one, because like because like they mummify them, and then they gotta dump them, all the scarabs on them
to eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and it happens again to like some other guy where scarabs just eat him, and that was scary. But seeing the fire ants, and like I've seen fire ants in real life, so I'm like, this is fucking terrifying.
they're real.
As a kid, fire ants, #1 enemy. Anytime I saw them, I was like, I would run away.
Yeah, I've never seen fire ants in person. We really don't have them on the East Coast.
Yeah, they're not that big.
Really?
Yeah, they're tiny. At least the ones I've seen.
Okay.
But very scary moment. So Arped ends up escaping because he's able to keep track of like the guard's pee schedule essentially. So he escapes somehow. We don't see how he escapes. Matthias turns back. He's gone.
Yeah.
He just like, it's like whenever you see those memes where the guy just like pieces out.
And he fades.
He fades out of the hole.
That was our ped.
Yeah. He's able to knock out the guys, and essentially is like just talking shit to Matthias. He's like, yeah, you're gonna die because you let me die.
Yeah.
And Matthias is like, no, let me out. And he's like, all right, but you have to take me on all your adventures because you're not an Akkadian, and I really want to go on adventures for some reason.
Yeah, like it's like, because you're Akkadian, I know if you promise anything, you got to keep it. And like Matthias is like, okay,
yeah,
sure, I'll take you on this adventure.
Yeah, so he like, it's kind of cool how he kills him. Not very efficient because he just ends up like putting a bunch of alcohol in his mouth and blowing it on a torch. So he like torches all these fire ants.
Yeah, because it's fire. I guess fire ants, their weakness is fire.
And Matthias is just like using his crimson shin just to like
start crushing something.
Yeah, he like bites one.
Yeah.
So he gets free, and that's how we meet Arped. And when we meet the sorceress, we first see her as just like Memnon's like tool, essentially.
Yeah, she like plays with rocks on a map. Like the lore of the magic is not explained.
No.
So like she like touches this blue rock or whatever on the map, and she sees a vision, which this vision doesn't come true. But that's just because plans change.
Yeah, and I don't understand how like her visions work. At first it makes it seem like her visions are, if she sees it, it happens no matter what.
Yeah, because she sees like this like camp on fire, and like we see one of like the rebel leaders like looking back, but that doesn't happen in the movie.
No.
And we see later on that she sees Matthias's death. And so she's like, but like we really don't get like a lot of like, I don't know, because she says my like visions are like shimmers in the pond, some are certain and some are shadows. But like, I don't know, don't really understand how they just happen.
Yeah,
it's like she just touches random things and she could just see shit, which is such just like a lame power.
Yeah,
here it's like you could see maybe 50% of future things that could happen, but only when like you touch certain things.
I do like her That's So Raven moments where she kind of like stares off at the camera and then has her vision.
Yeah.
So those are cool, but Memnon is kind of like simping for her.
Oh yeah,
because he really wants to lay in bed with her, and she's like, God, sorry, if we lay in bed together, I cannot see anymore.
Yeah, so, and like at that point, like Memnon's like, no, once we win this battle, like I won't need your visions. And she's like, I'm not really into him.
Yeah. So when we see her again, it's when Matthias is escaping the palace. He ends up crashing out of like a brothel and falls down like 8 stories or something.
And Liz.
Yeah, because he crashes through a skylight, and then we see the bath. So we're like, oh, cool, he's gonna land in the bath. Nah, just smashes right on the like cobblestone.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where he should have died.
Yeah, but he gets up, and we see that this is the sorceress's bath, right? So he's like, oh fuck. When the guards are coming in after him, he like goes into the bath, and the sorceress pulls out her knife on him. Yeah,
she like gives him a little stab, and he's like, "Oh, bitch!" Yeah.
And they like drain down the bath because for some reason this bath's drain is human sized, and it's just a water slide essentially.
And it just leads out to like the market. And we get another kind of funny scene where this kid like is holding a coin, and he's like wishing, and he throws it in, and then the sorceress like pops up like naked, staring at him, and she's like, oh, the gods be praised.
Yeah. It reminded me of that moment at the end of Animal House when the kid is reading Playboy.
Yeah.
And the girl just crashes through the window. He's just like, thank you, God.
Thanks, God. Such a pal.
And when they escape, the sorceress initially wants to also escape Matthias, right? because she tries to leave in the middle of the night. Matthias has her tied to him, so he knows when she gets up. But he convinces her somehow not to escape.
Yeah, like he gives her like almost like an ultimatum thing. It's like you can leave, but like if you stick with me, it'd be way easier for you to live.
Yeah, because there's more dangerous things out there than me.
Yeah, and this is part of where like she starts to fall in love with him. It's just Stockholm syndrome again, though.
It is, because when Matthias is doing his Batman thing, he ends up getting stabbed with a poisonous arrow.
From scorpion venom, which is where I thought the movie was going to make its like halfway mark. We're like, let's go.
I think everyone thought that.
Scorpion powers.
So when he's dying, the sorceress is able to somehow save his life, which is very kind of funny thinking back on it, because Arped's like, oh no, Matthias is going to die. It's like, unless you do something. And when the sorceress is trying to help, in the background, we see Arped just sleeps. It's just like, you're helping? Cool. And he just like knocks out.
I'm going to go vibe somewhere else.
But the way she saves Matthias's life is very sexy.
Oh my God, yeah.
She mounts him, and I'm like...
Calm down, he's dying.
And essentially turns into a Dementor, because she sucks out his soul.
Yeah, it's very like this orange yellow light comes out of him, and she eats it, and then she passes out, which I thought was like, oh, so she died so he could live. But no. When they wake up in the morning, his wound on his leg is gone, and she wakes up like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, it just like tires her out, and she says something like, I was able to take out the venom, but you'll always have scorpion blood running through you.
I guess.
Yeah, so he's now in tune with the scorpion. Doesn't come back at all. He doesn't use the scorpion later on or anything.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was going to be he could command scorpions, or like he was like bad, more like, I don't know, stronger.
Yeah.
But I guess not.
He can't do whatever a scorpion can.
No. He can't crawl around. He doesn't have a stinger.
No. So that's like how we see the sorcerer like kind of develop as a character when they end up going to this almost like an oasis, right? It's like the rebel camp where all the other tribes are staying and like hiding from Memnon. That's when we see Balthazar again. Yeah,
and he's pissed because he knows like Memnon's group is gonna run through his camp now as long as Matthias is here. So he wants to kill Matthias just to get him out of here. But this is where we get like that like rivalry battle between two characters where they're equally matched. Just to kind of like, I don't know. Doesn't serve any like real plot development. It's just there to kind of be like, these two characters are really strong.
It's just to like boost like the testosterone.
Yeah, it's just, oh wait, we haven't had a fight scene in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
We should start one right now.
Yeah, like the one thing that I think came out of this fight scene that stuck with me the most is when they're both running at each other with their swords and they both break on impact.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But ultimately the rest of the fight is like pretty much the same as any other fight.
It is a very like boring, very choreographed fight, which in turn just ends up being Matthias saying, hey, join me. And Balthazar's like, no, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, you're
like,
an Akkadian.
Yeah, like, we don't want to help. Like, we're safe here. And it's your fault that, like, if we all die, because Memnon's going to come after the sorceress.
Yeah, and you brought her to us.
Yeah, so, like, shameful on you, dude.
Yeah, so that night is where we see the sorceress and Matthias get down and dirty.
Yeah, they do. They do the deed.
And so, like, as the audience, you're like, oh, she lost her powers.
Yeah, because that's what it makes it seem. Because she goes back to Memnon after that.
Yeah, because she doesn't want the camp to be destroyed. So she takes the camel, I believe.
Yeah, she does.
And goes back to Memnon, where we learned that Memnon's crew doesn't really, like, want to follow him into battle without the sorceress.
Yeah. Because
they're like, we only like you because you have that cool person with you. And he's like, I have her. Don't worry, she's just sick. And they're like, I haven't seen her in a couple of days. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So she shows up, and so then his men are like, all right, we'll battle. Except, like, Memnon kills the dude that was like, where's the sorceress?
Yeah.
Which, like, that dude just got done so dirty. Here he's just, like, asking, like, a question, like, to reassure the entire army.
Yeah.
And like, Memnon's like, you're weak. Kills him.
Memnon's a bitch.
Yeah.
I don't like him because after he kills that guy, he's like, "Oh, follow me to my chambers," and he instantly knows. He's like,
"Yeah, I know." He was able to like suss out that she like is not the same.
Yeah, he's like, "You're used goods. I don't believe you have your magic anymore."
So he does. I think you called it the lazy Susan of Egypt, where he has like all these pots on there. Mm-hmm. It's like 6 pots. 4 of them have cobras in it. And he wants her to like predict which ones have like no cobras, which like I was like, okay, this is kind of it's like Russian roulette, but Egypt style.
It is. It's just like a wheel of misfortune, but she's able to suss out which one doesn't have a cobra in it. He's just like, all right, well now there's 1 pot with a cobra, and there's 5 now. So I guess this is where we find out that she still has magic. I'm assuming.
Because she sticks her hand in and she pulls the cobra out, and it did not bite her, and it's like wrapped around her, and she can like use it at him.
Yeah, because she uses it as a sword.
One of the weirdest things that ever happened in this movie.
Because when she's wielding this cobra as a sword, Memnon has a sword. They clash. We hear it. And like the cobra's head comes off. So like not a very useful sword.
No. And like the fact that it still made the clink noise is like so funny.
That was the funniest part. And while all this is happening back at the camp, the rebel camp, Matthias is like, oh shit, she's gone. I'm going after her. And she's like, the sorceress has gone because she was like saving all your lives. He's like, and I'll stand alone and I'll fight. And Balthazar is like, no, because where will the glory be for all of us?
Yeah, like if Matthias goes and kills Memnon, then the rest of the group will be like, shit.
Yeah.
So they got FOMO. Mm-hmm. So they all come up with this plan to get into the kingdom.
Yeah, and when they break in, there's 4 groups. There's Matthias going after a sorceress and Memnon. There's Balthazar doing his own thing, being a badass. There's the street rat with all the ladies. And then there's the horse thief and the alchemist trying to blow up the palace. So even though it is like basically nonstop action at this point, it cuts back and forth to a lot of like different characters and what they're doing. So I think it kind of splits it up a lot, like kind of nicely.
Yeah, so you're not just watching Balthazar just run through dudes for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's happening for like a minute and a half, and then it cuts to another group, and then it cuts to another group. So I will give the movie that. They made the ending like a little entertaining. Yeah. It wasn't just like one long fight scene again.
Yeah, I will give it that too. And it was kind of cool how like this movie ties up, because Memnon, like outside, the kid and all the ladies are winning, but they end up getting like almost taken over by all like these troops. And Balthazar, we see him struggling, and the horse thief and the alchemist are like about to blow up the palace, but then they also get like stranded. And while this is happening, we see like the fight taking place on the roof with Matthias and Memnon. Which at this point in the movie, it kind of like calls back to how badass Memnon is with swords.
Yeah, they say he was like the best swordsman in the desert.
Yeah, you pointed this out when we recorded last, that Memnon is like kind of powerful with swords because he's able to like beat the Rock, right?
Yeah, like the Rock only has like one sword, and like he's basically on the run the entire fight, while Memnon's just like slashing at him and shit. But the moment that he gets disarmed with his swords, Matthias can just beat the shit out of him.
Oh yeah,
like unarmed, he sucks.
Oh yeah, because like it's like the Matthias, right? It's like it's the Rock. How could he not just like snap this dude in half.
Yeah, like Memnon's not like a scrawny guy, but definitely in real life, if Matthias punched him at all, he would probably break bone.
Oh, for sure. The one thing I did like about this fight scene was when Memnon dips his swords in the fire. And they catch on fire, and he's just like going at it to Matthias. That was dope. Yeah. And what's doper is like it was CGI when the swords catch on fire, like that initial thing. But then after that, it's all practical. The swords are actually on fire.
I didn't even catch any CGI actually.
Yeah, it's just like when they first, because like metal doesn't instantly catch on fire.
Yeah.
So it was just like that initial like, but that was super dope. Memnon somehow manages to get like the upper hand in that fight, and Matthias is like on the ground because Memnon has the upper ground now. And this is when we see the vision, right, that the sorceress had.
Yeah. Where like Matthias gets shot by like some unnamed guard in the back, and then goes like, ah.
Yeah, because when the guard's taking aim, the sorceress is like, oh no, I've seen this. So she rushes to his aid. Matthias sees what's going on, and he's like, no, is able to turn around just in time. So he takes the shot instead of the sorceress.
Yeah, so like her vision is like caused because of her. You know, if she just yelled like, look out, maybe he could have just dodged it.
Yeah.
But instead he takes an arrow for her.
He did. How does he get taken out? Like, does the sorceress take him out?
I think so. I think like she picks up a sword, kills him.
Yeah, and then we see Memnon doing like he's like sees what's happening. He's like, haha, like fucking losers. Turns around about to make like a speech to all his troops.
Because at the bottom is like that like Amazon girl tribe. They got surrounded now.
Yeah.
And like his group is pulling in, so he definitely is about to give like the evil ending monologue.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be like execute Order 66 on them. But we see Matthias being the most Matthias he could possibly be. Go grab his bow that was at the party at like the tables, because that's when we saw someone was messing with his bow. Just left it there. Grabs his bow. Takes the arrow out of his back like a fucking quiver and like pulls on it. And Memnon sees this too. So he's like turning around, he's kind of smirking, very smug with the whole situation. Call back to earlier where we saw how badass Memnon's supposed to be because he's able to catch an arrow.
Yeah, right before it hits him in the stomach, he could catch it.
But you never try to catch Matthias's arrows.
Yeah, and those things are like bullets.
Oh yeah, they're so fast. He pulls, releases the string, arrow goes flying. Memnon not fast enough, impales him. Memnon goes flying. At the same time, Horse Thief gathers some kind of courage, throws the torch onto the gunpowder. Palace goes up. So while the palace is going up, Balthazar is getting overpowered. He's like sees what's happening. He kills that Takmet, and when other people are running toward him, he's covers. So like the blast just takes everyone else out except for him. All like the lady warriors on the ground. The people behind them get like also exploded.
Yeah. So this is like a super clutch bomb moment.
Oh yeah, it's so sick. Memnon, while he's flying off the roof, the explosion is going up to him, so he gets just like engulfed in the flames.
Oh yeah. I did laugh when Memnon's body just goes right through the fire, and it just like makes this like very cartoonish thud. And you hear
and which is like the most jarring because it's like that happened, fucking badass, and you're like kind of like, oh shit, what's gonna happen next? Is like now like
there's still a whole army right there.
The whole army's there, and instead of just like attacking them, they just like take a knee. And they're like, the new king.
Yeah, the Scorpion King.
Yeah, which just kind of tells you a lot about society.
Yeah, they're like, well, we didn't like him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you gave off that vibe that, like, Memnon was not a liked king.
Yeah.
So we have a new king now.
And I guess the people don't know that the sorceress may or may not have power anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when they see her with Matthias, they're like, we should probably go with him.
Yeah, it's funny because like once Matthias becomes the Scorpion King, him and the sorceress kiss, and then the crowd, all you hear is like, "Yeah, woo!" It's like, why are you cheering for these two people kissing?
It's like, I haven't seen this kind of affection in years.
Yeah. And then cut to credits, and favorite part about the movie is once they cut to credits, we just hear this metal song playing.
Oh my god!
Immediately.
It's not even like a build up. It's just immediately just like guitars clashing.
Yeah, which is, I don't know if you like. I kind of cut away before we heard the whole song, but that's a Godsmack song.
I could see it.
And I'll tell you a little bit more about that song in our trivia. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get back to some of that trivia and our final thoughts on the movie. All right, and welcome back to the trivia portion of the show. All right, Nick, I have quite a doozy of trivia for you.
I'm not ready for any of it.
So,
I didn't do homework.
The Rock, right? He's a wrestler, an entertainer, the people's man. But in this movie, he wanted not to portray too much of that wrestler character. Because he wanted to separate the Rock from wrestling to his new movie persona. So he doesn't show too much of his like WWE, WWF things. The one thing he does throw in is the people's eyebrow.
Yes.
His iconic little like eyebrow arch that he does in almost every movie.
Yeah.
And his eyebrows are, as the kids say, on fleek. They are very plucked in this movie.
Yeah, he's a well-groomed man for being in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm. And since we're on the wrestling train, here's another fact. I threw this at you pre-recording, kind of throw it back at you again. So Vince McMahon is a producer in this movie solely for the reason that he owns the name The Rock. So he gets a cut of this movie because in this movie, Dwayne Johnson is credited as The Rock. Very weird that someone can own your nickname.
Yeah, I did not. So I'm not big. I didn't grow up in the wrestling scene. I knew kids that were. This wasn't my jam, I guess. But I always thought that was just a nickname, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So I didn't really think anything of when you see The Rock. But nowadays, like, you don't really hear him go by The Rock on like screen.
No.
Like people will still refer to him as The Rock, but yeah. I guess, that's okay. But if you credit yourself as that.
Yeah, he went through a phase where it was like he was The Rock, and then he tried to turn into this other persona. So he went as Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and now I think he just goes as like Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. Or I was watching some of his like videos because he has a YouTube channel. He refers to himself as DJ.
Oh, DJ.
Yeah. So like that's kind of cool.
I guess when you got like initials like that, you gotta throw them out there.
Yeah. So here's another piece of trivia for you. Dwayne Johnson's $5.5 million salary made the Guinness Book of Records for the highest salary for the first-time leading man.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So right off the bat, he was like first-time leading man, one of the highest salaries, and so high that he's in the Book of World Records. And even now, he's one of like the most expensive guys to get on your movie. Like if you want The Rock in your movie, it's like worth a ton of money.
Yeah, I think I don't know the exact figure, but I know when he did that Jungle Cruise movie, it was like they almost didn't want him in the end because he was so expensive.
Oh yeah, just imagine being that guy.
Well, like imagine if your budget is like an absurd $100 million, and then you want The Rock in the movie.
That's your budget.
Okay, now you have The Rock. Now what else do you have?
Yeah. The best you can do is just make your movie and then go on Cameo and pay for The Rock there. So during the fight with The Rock and Memnon at the end, there's a scene where Dwayne Johnson is lying on his back and he springs to his feet. You know, like that move where like people like just like go from their back to their feet. The director wanted to include that specific move because only Dwayne Johnson could perform that. Like Dwayne Johnson is like 6'3" pretty heavy for a dude, and only him in like that stature is able to physically perform that move. Normally when people do that, they're like very tiny people.
Yeah, I was gonna say I usually see that move done. They're like their builds are like their frames are like way smaller.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think about like a lot of the choreography for Dwayne Johnson must be hard for him to do.
Yeah.
At least a little bit, because he is a big guy.
Yeah.
And like your environment has to kind of fit that, you know. There is like enclosed spaces in this movie, so there must have been times where he's like accidentally hit props by accident, or maybe people, because he has to compensate for how big his wingspan probably is and shit.
He's a big dude, and it's pretty impressive that he's able to do that move. Even though this was his first movie, he did not do his like a lot of his stunts. He was comfortable enough for letting a stunt double do it, which is very smart of him. There are a lot of actors who are like, no, I want to do my own stunts, like Tom Cruise or something. But it's smart that as like a first time like leading man, that he was confident enough in himself to like know better and let the professionals do these outs like very crazy things, right? Because like there's nothing worse than if something goes wrong, his career's just done there.
Yeah, if he like, I don't know, snaps his ankle or something, he never heals right. But that's interesting that he has someone do his own stunts, or at least some of the stunts, because I guess like knowing that he was part of like WWE, it's like you look at him like, oh, you're gonna do everything.
Yeah. So
but I guess not.
Here's something, right? In 1995,
year I was born.
Yes. Egyptologists discovered a 5,400-year-old limestone carving in Egypt known as the Scorpion Tableau. It depicts the victory of a ruler called the Scorpion King in a battle that unified Upper Egypt, which was a prelude to the complete unification of Upper and Lower Egypt by Narmer, the first pharaoh of Egypt. The film is a fictionalized depiction of a historical event about which very little is known. And some people think that Narmer is the first pharaoh who himself was a Scorpion King. So I was kind of reading into this a little bit and listened to a few podcasts on like actual history of this character. And pretty astonishing of like this character of the Scorpion King was a real person. And like for the longest time, people didn't believe that he was actually real. He was like this myth.
Damn.
And he predates Egypt, like predates Egypt's like modern like kingdoms and stuff.
Okay.
And a lot of like in the movie they call him kings and stuff. Like Memnon's a king, not a pharaoh, because this story takes place before the kings were even pharaohs.
Okay.
Because like pharaohs is like a Greek term.
Yeah, and before like pyramids and shit. Damn, that's interesting. The fact that they had like, there's like no knowledge of where this tableau truly came from or what it was a part of. They were just like, Scorpion King, let's go.
Yeah. In that podcast I was listening to, they were talking about how they found the tomb of like this Scorpion King, but unfortunately someone else found it before them, and like grave robbers. So they stole a lot of stuff and like smashed a lot of things. So like even less knowledge is known, and like that knowledge is lost forever. Yeah.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool how like this very minor character, Mummy Returns, is based off an actual person in real history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is all the trivia I have for you. So I want to know what your final thoughts were, if you thought this was a good movie, and if you think it deserves a spot in the collection.
Okay, so maybe a hot take, not sure. So this was the first movie we watched for the podcast where I actually reached for my phone because I did get bored. Not that like I'm bored of action and stuff like that, but there was nothing really like keeping me involved in what was going on, you know. I didn't like hate the movie by no means, you know. I understand it was a 2002 movie, stuff like that. But I think if I could go the rest of my life without ever seeing this movie again, I don't think I would be like too heartbroken. I see why people like this movie, especially like if you've seen it as like a kid and stuff like that. You could still have like nostalgia. But going into it first time, I just don't really think it was like the best thing ever. So if I don't think it would be in my collection, just because like I would never want to watch it again. I think I would make a collection of movies that like I either truly loved and I would like to show people, or movies I want to see again. And I don't think I would want to see this movie again.
So you think it's a bad movie?
But like this thing, like I don't know if like bad is, you know, kind of how we said like about like The First Cow, good movie, not 100% I would ever like put in a collection. This is like maybe just barely failed or barely passed for me, depending on the day, I guess.
Okay, could go either way.
Yeah, like I don't know, maybe like a 5 out of 10 kind of vibe. You know.
Very consistent with a lot of reviewers. I think it has like a 5.5 on IMDb.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot there, so I guess like if 6 is passing, then I guess in a score sense, I would say it's not a good movie.
Yeah. Okay. Man, I am very conflicted with this movie just because of all the memories I have with it and everything that associates with those memories. Okay, I guess I would say. No, I don't think it is a good movie. I do think it is a bad movie, but it's a fun movie. If I was with people and we were all drinking, perfect background movie. Like, if you're like talking to someone, conversation's kind of going a little, you take a peek at the screen, you're like, oh, Matthias is doing something cool. Go back to it by the end of like the movie. Didn't even realize it ended. I think that's like what this movie is made for. It's made for just like throw it on in the background.
Yeah, so like you're saying like if there was a bar, and that this movie was playing, it would fit.
Yeah, if I was at a bar talking with someone who I haven't talked to in a long time, and I'm just like
on occasion when the conversation dips, you could just look
at the screen and I'm like, I love this movie. At that point, that's when my opinion of this movie would change from damn, this is a bad movie too. Oh my god, this movie's great.
Yeah, I think if you were a little tipsy, this movie would be better.
I do think so, yeah.
And yeah, like if you were able to talk to someone during like the boring parts of the movie or the parts where it's like nothing interesting is happening.
Yep. So, on just that fact, I will say I will keep this movie in my collection, but there's a caveat to that. We didn't watch this movie from my personal collection. We watched this on HBO Max because it was streaming.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is I can't remember how fucked up this movie is because I watched it so much as a kid. And this is the first copy when it released because my dad bought it for me. Or he bought it for us. So it is a very old movie, and I think it has some scratches, so it'll skip a lot.
Gotcha.
So I won't upgrade it because I don't care enough to upgrade this movie or buy a new copy of it.
Yeah.
So it will stay in my collection to the point where I'm just like, oh, I forgot I have this. If I try to play and it doesn't work, I'll toss it out.
Okay.
So it will stay in the collection until it is no longer playable. Yeah. And I just love the cover. So
okay.
That is my decision on it. So I guess I'm cheating a little bit because I do think it is a bad movie and I don't think it should stay in the collection but maybe I would watch this movie again in 10 years when I forget about this movie and I remember it being as like, oh, that was a good movie until I rewatch it and I'm like, that was not a good movie. well in 10 years don't invite me to that watch party unless we're like drinking. Yeah. So now that episode is wrapped up, let's find out what we're going to watch next week. So I recycled a lot of the movies from the wheel from last week, but included a new one to replace the Scorpion King. So again, we have They Live, Innkeepers, The Others, Charlie's Angels, Attack the Block, Shin Godzilla, Scooby-Doo again.
Let's go.
This week's new choice is Crawl. I don't know if you've seen it.
Crawl.
It's a very...
Is that the alligator movie?
It is an alligator movie.
Oh my god. I want to watch that.
Have you seen that movie?
No, I just watched the trailer. Right? That's the movie where she's like in the flooding house.
Yep, it is. And
the trailers were insane for that movie.
Dude, I saw this with a group of people. Only one out of those three people that actually enjoyed the movie. Everyone else was talking so much shit on it, and I was just like, this movie was great. So let's give this bad boy a spin and see what we watch. Innkeepers.
Okay.
This was one of your picks, right?
Yeah, I picked it because the cover looked weird.
And it's a very spooky cover.
It was just a bunch of keys with like skeleton heads on it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this movie.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I think so. Like, I was like trying to cherry pick some movies that had low ratings, and I think that was one of them.
Oh, it's a low rated movie?
I think it was around like a 6.
So this movie, I remember when I got it, and it's still sealed. I've never opened this movie. I got it at FYE in like one of their like bargain bins that are like right next to the door, where it's almost as if you steal this movie, they don't care.
Gotcha. It's like it's like at the front of the store. It's like, please take it.
It was like $2.
Damn.
So I don't know anything about this movie. This might be
a hidden gem.
A hidden gem, or it might just be terrible.
Yeah.
Like very easy decision to throw this guy out.
Oh man, I really want to see Crawl.
I'll keep it on the wheel if you want to just like recycle movies, and we'll keep adding other movies.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay, cool. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Scorpion King. It's kind of a struggle because we already recorded most of this episode until it got corrupted. So I think we did pretty good re-recording this episode.
Yeah, so I think like the biggest change from last time to this time is we didn't go over scene by scene of certain parts. And I feel like it flowed pretty well. I guess we'll let you guys decide how well it sounded.
Yeah. So please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcast. I believe we are on everywhere now, on Apple, Google, Spotify. We are also on YouTube if you prefer that. If you have any movie recommendations, please let us know.
Yes, and follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter.
Ooh, moving up in the world.
Yeah, we are making some progress there on our social media. Just trying to update more. Maybe throughout the week while we're watching movies and editing and thinking about them, we'll put like some little like funny pictures or things that we think about that relate to the movie.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
If you want to tag along with us and watch Innkeepers on your own and see what thoughts you come up with, and if they relate to us, feel free to. And please leave any like comments or suggestions you might have. But we will all see you guys next week. And remember to live free and
die well. God, they say it so many times.
All right. See you guys later.
Peace out.
Bye.